So we're going to have that quantum singularity, I believe, very soon. We probably already have it for lower resistant algorithms. There have been a number of leaks in this area, which means nothing less than the whole global critical infrastructure, anything that is a secret, that is encrypted in some way, will be revealed at the same time everywhere for everything once this happens. And I believe we are quite close. Most of the people that we're dealing with, both in academia and also in intelligence, believe we're quite close if we're not already there.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our interview with David Carvalho. David is the founder of No-Risk Protocol. With more than 20 years experience as an ethical hacker, he was an advisor to nation states and critical infrastructures under NATO on cyber espionage, cyber terrorism, and cyber warfare, and has been an advisor to multi-billion-dollar global enterprises like Nokia, AT&T, and AI Games. So interestingly enough, David created the first distributed AI and blockchain-based cybersecurity mesh solution, and was also the former youngest global CISA in the European Union. So David, welcome to our Risk Management Show podcast today.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to meet you as well. So I believe, David, we will have a very thoughtful, interesting conversation on the topic of blockchain-based solutions for ensuring trust and transparency in a risk assessment, and also a little bit discussing your activity in the quantum-resistant risk management strategy for cryptography in the post-quantum world. But before that, David, could you tell us a short story about yourself, your career path, and what brought you to where you are right now, and what you guys at No-Risk Protocol are up to today?
Sure. Thank you so much. Yeah. So you did a pretty good job on the introduction, so I'll try to make it short. So yes, my name is David Carvalho. I am originally from Portugal. I've worked pretty much all my life outside of the country, so I'm back here again. So I've been an ethical hacker since I was about 13 years old, working for all sorts of companies and law enforcement for a number of decades now. So it's 24, 25 years now of being a cybersecurity researcher and an ethical hacker. I've been also global chief of security for a number of multi-billion-dollar companies, as you mentioned, both in Europe and also in the UK, and been advising a number of nation states on very large digital transformations for now close to a decade and a half, mainly using at the time what would be called emerging technologies such as AI, blockchain, and other technologies like this. Of course, very much focused on cybersecurity or data protection by design and default. I've also been advising a number of nation states on cyber war, cyber terrorism, and cyber espionage, situations and mitigation of such environments in the real world, or such risks in the real world, for close to a decade now. All of these under the European Union, states under the NATO umbrella as well. I've been involved in the blockchain space since very early, so since original gangster days, pretty much. So about 2009, December, around that time. I've been a miner for a long time, and also involved in a number of innovations in this space, also in the academia spaces, published a number of papers together with various universities and other PhD colleagues in the space of cryptography, blockchain, cybersecurity. And yeah, that's pretty much that about myself. So second part of the question, how did I get here? Why did I decide to create No-Risk Protocol? So myself as a CISO, I was very aware of the risks, just as most of my partners, or let's say colleagues, are in the space. And that it's just a question of time until you get hacked. It's not a question of like how much best effort you do. Of course, that has an impact in how much money you spend, etc. But there is definitely a sweet spot. Having said that, I felt the necessity through also the contacts that I had in NATO and other environments that in other countries that I advised, to really look for new approaches to solve problems, fundamental problems to computing and trust between networks and between systems. And we decided, both myself, a number of other colleagues, and the former chief of intelligence of NATO, Mr. Hagen, we decided to, make an effort to bring together blockchain or decentralized ledger technology, cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, and lately post-quantum technologies to really change how systems validate each other, they validate their data, they ensure that they are in a trusted state or that they are working as intended.
Fantastic. So a lot of experience for such a relatively short career, both in enterprises and European wise institutions. So it's great, and also a blockchain pioneer. Yeah, are you not the only one that bought pizza for a few bitcoins?
Actually, there is a guy that bought pizza for about 10,000 bitcoins. That wasn't
Wow.
me. I bought the pizza for only 11 bitcoins.
Wow. But
Yeah, at the
I
time,
hope
the
you
Bitcoin,
you
in my
still get some
defense,
in.
sorry?
Wow. Okay.
Actually, in my defense, I did
All
that
right.
when
So
the
let's
Bitcoin
go
was in parity
about
with the
our
dollar.
question topic about blockchain solutions.
Sure.
So, uh, so how do blockchain technologies enhance trust and transparency in traditional risk assessment models, particularly in the sectors like finance and insurance?
Well, it's a very good point. I mean, blockchain technology fundamentally is a decentralized network of validators that have very high cryptographic resiliency. So, in other words, whatever is validated to be true is validated to be true under consensus of all the participants or a number of participants. Under, as I mentioned, a high mathematical resilience for it. So, it is a trusted network. And right now it's mainly being used for tokens and cryptocurrency and smart contracts and NFTs and things like this. And we thought it would be interesting to use that for best practice, compliance, governance and risk management, and also for the assessment of standards of systems as they communicate with each other. So that's really one of the reasons why we thought that bringing some of the most mature cybersecurity principles from a validation and standardization perspective together with decentralized ledger technology or blockchain would be a good idea. And that started from a very strategic standpoint. So initially the idea was really to, let's say, mitigate central points of failure that occur in every network. So every device in the world is, by definition, a point of failure to everything it connects to and every network it connects to. So an attacker can leverage that capability and exploit the vulnerability or take over an access, so on and so forth. And through this point, he can, eventually take over a full network or a full group of services or processes, et cetera, or even bring a company down to their knees through ransomware or whatever, or exfiltrate data, and so on. So this is really nobody's fault. This is really, it's how the internet is made. But now we have other capabilities, especially with decentralization and Web3 technology, to leverage every device for a perspective from a perspective of defense and consensus about what is actually real. So to validate the data, validate that the systems are indeed in a good state, and almost kind of like force them to be auditors. So the more complexity you have normally in a business, the more surface of risk you have, really, the more opportunities for an attacker to do all the things we just mentioned exist. Under such a principle, under such a principle, as I mentioned, with decentralized ledger technology at the backbone, and in our case, with a dedicated consensus mechanism that's created together with various universities called distributed proof of security, or DPoSec, we can actually validate certain, principles or primitives to be real or not. So we can actually prove that a certain system or a group of systems, leveraging all the other systems on the network, under agreement that they are in a trusted state or not, or that a certain application, for example, in a financial institution, a banking application, a KYC application, a SWIFT system, it could be as low level as processes that are running in the cloud or locally, all the way to validating that whole structures or systems are themselves maintaining integrity and that they are in a trusted state and following, for example, PCI DSS, and that the data protection applications are actually running and they have not been tampered with. So, for example, capabilities appear that were not possible before. So, for example, if I'm a financial institution and I have, for example, a payment provider that's accessing my systems in some way, or the KYC principle, or a transactions a process, or whatever, they can actually validate through the chain, in our case, our chain, that my systems are actually in a trusted state before they actually consume the data from the APIs, right? And this, if you think about it, it's extremely powerful. And also the data itself can be made immutable. So as you know, data that goes into blockchains is immutable. So it goes in, cannot be modified. So you have a timestamp, you know exactly how it is. And if somebody tampers with that mathematical principle, you actually know about it and you can make an informed decision. You can say, okay, I don't want this data anymore because it has been tampered with, or the process that generates, consumes, or sends this data is not in a trusted state, or it's connected to a system that has been breached. For example, there's something malicious running and the whole infrastructure agrees that that's the case, or it's not following best practice, for example.
All right. So, of course, we know about smart contracts and the decentralized ledgers, that they could revolutionize the way risk is assessed and managed across industries. But what are the potential challenges or limitations in implementing a blockchain solution for risk assessment? How can organizations overcome this?
So smart contracts is definitely something that has been used already by a number of financial organizations in highly, regulated spaces in that area, from insurance to others. However, smart contracts on themselves also have risks. There's a number of vulnerabilities that come from smart contracts. So, for example, just on the blockchain area, on fintech area, about $20 billion have been stolen through malicious smart contracts, or smart contracts that had vulnerabilities on their code. So things are not a panacea. Having said that, they are much better than having centralized systems. However, the smart contracts themselves are not the solution to the problems. They allow for some things to be validated or ensured, but they themselves should not be at the core of things. We believe that the infrastructure itself should be decentralized. So we believe in the principle of DePIN, or decentralized physical infrastructure, or decentralized logical infrastructure, DLIN. And this is really what the kind of technologies that we have created allow for. So every device that is participating in any sort of any sort of digital operation can actually be turned into a node that then validates all its running applications, services, standards, so on and so forth. But it's also validated by all the others and validates all the others. So if you have a strong infrastructure backed by this, you have a highly resilient infrastructure that highly resistant to tampering, to impact from malicious changes or anything like that. So a good part of this in our side, not just from a financial perspective, financial institutions perspective, but from a government, highly regulated spaces, critical infrastructure perspective, and also defense, was the kind of like initial trigger for this to happen. So we ended up bringing some colleagues from other environments into the company. So, for example, the former president of Microsoft Southeast Asia and chairman of Microsoft Africa, Mr. Ahmed Reda Chami. Also, Mr. Mick Mulvaney from the White House, the former White House administration, that was the former chief of staff, obviously from a more strategic perspective. I already mentioned Kjell Hagen from the NATO Intelligence Committee, and David Holtzman, which is one of the pioneers of the internet. He created the DNS system, is our chief of strategy right now. He was the former CTO of IBM back in the day, and advised a number of presidents in the US on cyber. So the strategy is quite, he actually ran the whole internet until the year 2000, which is quite an interesting story. So the strategy is deeper than just approaching specific networks or businesses. Of course, we can provide direct, or this technology can provide direct solutions to problems, or a completely different way of how you manage and trust, your audits and your information security and the reports you get, because there's a lot of false positives, false negatives, things that are never reported because the malware is just too good and doesn't allow for the data to actually arrive to the command and control center, etc. So this decentralized approach really helps any sort of digital process that you have, and that could be from an operational perspective. So decentralizing it, so taking away the points of failure. If there's, like, for example, an outage, the best you can expect from a cloud system, for example, is for that system to be failed over somewhere else, right? Or a high availability environment or something like this. Under a decentralized physical infrastructure perspective, that's not the case. Literally every machine, every system that you have, potentially including your customers, can be a service provider. So it's really, really hard for an attacker to actually damage your availability, right? And as we know, availability is one of the 3 pillars of cyber, right? On the CIA principle, right? So from a perspective of ensuring that the infrastructure is maintaining integrity, which is a second pillar of cybersecurity, this also helps monumentally, because we're talking about a highly resilient, hyper-validated integrity in trust management system, almost like a hive mind. Every machine participates in what you mentioned in the beginning, what we call the swarm AI, which is, we actually published a paper around this that was well published in Germany about edge computing learning, what is normal and what is good across an infrastructure, and then achieving consensus on that. And, for example, isolating systems if they're not behaving well, or stopping some risky processes from running under consensus, so on and so forth. So there are a lot of use cases that come from our technology innovations or discoveries, together with these, let's call it like visionary tech and business luminaries around the world.
All right. Let's go to the second part of our interview about quantum resistant risk management strategies for, post-quantum strategy, because, there is a quantum computer now that make current cryptography obsolete. So
yeah. So yeah, you're absolutely right about that. That is a huge problem. I think it's as a space, it's probably bigger than AI. It's just not a very shiny object at the moment. AI is the shiny object for now. But in terms of market size and risk for the world, this is probably the biggest risk. So I tend to speak with the generals that advise the organization about once every week, once every 15 days. And they tell me that one of the biggest, if not the biggest risk that they are seeing for the next 1 to 3 years to 5 years for their nation states, for their critical infrastructure, highly regulated spaces, government, defense, and so on, is the quantum side. And there have been actually leaks, let's say, of advancements by potentially not friendly nation states on that area. There are constant advances on that area. This is, I'm just going to quote David Holtzman here, but this is from a conference that he talked about recently. This is no longer a problem. How can I say? Quantum computers achieving what we call a quantum singularity, which is basically, a quantum computer that has enough qubits to break elliptic curve cryptography, which is, everything is based on right now, from blockchains to, advanced encryption standard to really anything that anybody is using in the world, from banking to defense to you name it. So this is no longer a problem that is kind of like somewhere in the mist. This is an engineering problem. So if you throw enough funds and enough engineers at the problem, you're going to solve it. So we're going to have that quantum singularity I believe very soon. We probably already have it for lower resistant algorithms. There have been a number of leaks in this area, which means nothing less than the whole global critical infrastructure, anything that is a secret, that is encrypted in some way, will be revealed at the same time everywhere for everything once this happens. And I believe we are quite close. Most of the people that we're dealing with, both in academia and also in intelligence, believe we're quite close if we're not already there. So this brings two big problems. One of them is, of course, the revelation of all secrets, which basically would render current computing and the internet and business sort of obsolete in many ways. And it would probably trigger a shift in global power as well. At the same time, there is a big effort that we know about by nation states, agencies, and other actors in what's called capture now and decrypt later efforts, which basically they're capturing keys, they're capturing certificates, so on and so forth, in massive amounts, in an expectancy in a short term to break them and have access to all the underlying data. And as we know, nobody changes keys. No. So whatever they're capturing now, in the future, they're going to have access to just much more data. So there is a big effort right now in terms of actually future-proofing in the most critical of spaces. Of course, financial space is one of them. Future-proofing transactions, data movements, key management, PKI, so on and so forth, that sits on the underlying of securing data, with using quantum safe or post-quantum cryptography. And I'm proud to say we presented a paper in the IEEE Foundation, which is one of the biggest engineering groups in the world, actually last year in Cape Town, where our paper was chosen to be presented, that brought forward the first decentralized blockchain-based consensus based on post-quantum capabilities, which allows for not just for data protection, but also for a revolution in terms of PKI. So we're very excited on that. Actually, our whole ecosystem, the whole knowledge protocol runs on this. This is every, let's say, proof from let's say, a cybersecurity proof to a trust proof to a compliance and risk management proof that exists is actually already under our ecosystem encrypted with this. We're also working in other things at network side that I cannot talk much about, but has to do with VPNs also in this area. And there is an extreme interest from environments that are aware of the risks. So think about, central banks, defense organizations, and many others that want their data to be protected now and into the future, to actually adopt such technologies. And we're very, very focused with academia and bringing further innovation on this area. In the next 1 to 2 months, we should have another paper out. So yeah, that's an area that excites us a lot. All our advisors from all sorts of highly critical infrastructures and environments are very aware of it, and they believe it's extremely necessary, not just to protect historical things or legacy environments or data, but also to protect current data in transit and as it's consumed.
All right, awesome. So, David, I would like to ask you a personal point of view. What is the major misconception when you speak about quantum technology and post-quantum cryptography that you kind of strongly disagree with?
That's a very interesting point or question that you make. Generally, the environments that I talk to are quite aware of it. There's no deep disagreements. The only disagreement that I've had generally with people that are outside of intelligence circles and even academic circles are about like how close are we to some sort of quantum singularity of some kind. Personally, myself and our advisors, we believe we are quite close. As I mentioned, we are probably there already for some for some lower level cryptographic algorithms. And there is a big effort from, for example, NIST and other institutions to set competitions and standards for the post-quantum era. I think it's moving very well. We have adopted all of those. We are participating in these. I would say the biggest misconception and the biggest risk that exists right now for large organizations, governments, etc., is the belief that they can be ready after the fact. And that is a major mistake. This is not like the cloud where you can move to the cloud and you have 10 years to do so and there's no big impact. No, once this happens, you can't go back. Like all your things no longer belong to you, right? So you need to do it now. You need to start thinking about it now and doing something about it now. So I think that's the biggest misconception. Once that happens, and of course, if there is an actor that's involved in this and that actually achieved this, nobody will probably know, because the biggest advantage to this actor is to be quiet and just steal things for as long as possible until it's not detected and make it look like a normal hack. But I would say, as I would repeat about just this point, all the generals that in the intelligence services we're connected to, they are quite aware of this. They believe that we are in some way already there, and we need to think as if we are. Otherwise, it's a pretty limit situation that will be hard to recover from.
All right, fantastic. So a lot of information for guys like me that not technical about this last development in technical. But David, let's summarize for someone who is listening to this interview and would like to walk away with one or two major takeaways. What would it be?
Wow, that's a hard job. I would say from a summary perspective that there is the need to in a vision for the future that is quite disruptive from a risk management perspective and from a security assurance perspective. And that vision is about creating some sort of like global groups of decentralized security layers, where the devices are actors and they participate in consensus about what is actually true or not, and that can be about security or assurance or data quality or other things. Also, from a perspective of future resilience and preparedness for any highly regulated space, companies that are in the traded on the stock market and publicly traded and so on and so forth. To guarantee future stability, you need to think right now about the quantum threats that your data is exposed to and your infrastructure is exposed to. And the best way to do something about it is to get involved with geeks like myself, with groups that are actually setting new standards for data protection, for example, in Web 2 and Web 3, which we are involved in as well, and decentralized physical infrastructure approaches. So what I would say is that this is bigger than cloud, this is bigger than AI, and you just wait.
Oh. Wow, it's cutting edge stuff that you are talking about. So, David, thank you again, and I hope we will cooperate with you guys. You may, if you have some good content, you have some people who can post on our site at globalriskcommunity.com. It's fantastic stuff to understand, and I hope to invite you or other guys to more podcast interviews, because
Awesome.
it's as you said, is a future even bigger than AI, because now people say that AI is bigger than internet. Now you say cryptography is bigger than AI. So
Yeah, I would let me just finalize that comment. That's a pretty interesting comment. like there are some dependencies here that people say AI is bigger than the internet. Well, the internet, the AI is dependent on it. So without the internet, there would be no AI. And so definitely the internet is bigger than AI. But in order to make all these structures work, and even for we in the future to trust AI, because there's a big point about trust here in AI, which is probably the biggest point. Whenever ChatGPT gives you an answer, you have no idea if the model is still trusted. You don't know if the systems are getting the data from the right point. You don't know if the answer you're getting is the same answer that was sent to you at the origin. So there's so much to be done in terms of data quality across networks and future proofing your own security. That just like with AI, we are too full of ourselves and we don't understand the risk that is there. So yes, I believe, as do our advisors, that yes, it is bigger than AI, it is bigger than cloud, and it's going to be a dependency for those things to exist. The complete switch of mentality that is necessary, and it's going to happen because reality has a way to knock in our door and show us that we are not prepared. So.
All right. Thank you again, David, and wish you great success. And we speak to each other later.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much.